So we're back with FS 2020, nothing much really earth-shattering today, just want to keep the ball rolling with some quick updates. Mostly today it's going to be moaning. I've just been fairly randomly jumping in and flying places, and nothing I've said in previous videos has been contradicted about the quality of the scenery and the experience overall. One of the things I did was jumped in and just flew or attempted to start a couple of the legs from my round the world trip, just to see how the scenery and the experience compares. And one of those trips I did was from Spanish Fork, Utah towards Eagle County, the first leg of that trip anyway, in Colorado, and that was quite eye-opening. Now, first off, the scenery at Spanish Fork wasn't great, and we're comparing it with, from memory, I was on Orbic's open land class scenery when I did that on the round the world trip. But what was quite surprising and quite interesting really was I was flying the Cessna 172. Spanish Fork's very high airport, I can't remember, 7,000 feet or something, and we're crossing some mountains, so we're up at 10,000 feet. It was real world weather and it was fair weather, but there was a little bit of cloud around, and I was quite amazed to find myself flying into icing conditions quite rationally as well, when I was clear of the cloud, and it was very thin cloud but obviously moisture in the air. When I was clear of the cloud it was fine, but I saw a couple of times the first signs of icing on the windscreen and so on, and then of course when I persisted the whole thing iced up, and well, that didn't end well, let's just say. But in the flying of that I was just very interested. I did make some attempt to fly out of it to lower ground, and not very conscientiously of course, and the Cessna 172 isn't equipped, well, I'm pretty sure that one isn't equipped with any de-icing or anti-icing measures, with the exception of the pitot heat, which behaves kind of like it did in FSX. In other words, as soon as you switched it on, the airspeed indicator, which had stopped reading at all, just came back to life. But still, I'm interested to try that kind of scenario in a different aircraft that's icing equipped. So maybe I've not tried any of the many of the other aircraft yet. I think the Baron is the one with the flat panel displays, which I don't really like. We've got a Bonanza, I think, so we might try that. That might have some icing equipment built in. The other thing I've been doing is just trying to get more sophisticated with setting up my controls, and that's, oh gosh, a lot of moans about that. This is clearly a work in progress. The control setup screen, can we do this? Let's have a look. The control setup screen is very idiosyncratic. I haven't decided yet whether I like this or not, but there's definitely some problems with it. Just to look at this very briefly. So I've got keyboard and the mouse. We've got one Leo Bodner analog board and a whole bunch of these BBI32, which it doesn't distinguish between very well. You can program these, ish. I've managed to program some of the things. The parking brake, for example, is on a button that successfully works, but this is very hit and miss. Well, anyway, I won't go into this in great detail, but suffice it to say that I haven't been able to program things reliably on my button box Leo Bodner boards, and I think this is, there's many instances of strange and inconsistent behaviour in this programming screen. So I think that's down to the program itself. So that'll get better as time goes on. The other thing is I tried to plug in my Honeycomb Alpha yoke. I don't need that to fly with, but people have been reporting this strange bug with the incrementing the heading bug, and making claims that that's affected by the Alpha yoke. So I wanted to plug that in just so I could have a go at figuring out what's going on there. The problem with that is, although when I plug my yoke in I get a pop-up saying that it's detected the Alpha yoke, the yoke then doesn't appear in this list of devices at all, so I just can't do anything with it, and there's nothing I can do to date to change that. I mean, there's things I haven't tried. I could unplug everything else. I could, well, anyway, I haven't done that. So that's another bug. Something else, I've got the Yoko yoke, that works fine. I've got the TQ6 from Virtual Fly. This is the old one, it's the analog potentiometer based one. That doesn't work satisfactorily unless you run the Virtual Fly Test and Calibrate program. So that's the Yoko and that's the TQ6. So if you look at those, things are responding as you'd expect. Virtual Fly know about this and they have made an updated version of the Test and Calibrate. So we're all good to go, with one exception. I've got my quad mounted upside down. There's no way to swap the levers over so that, well, I mean, I'm not flying twins at the moment, but if I fly a twin, those are the throttles, but the left engine needs me to use the right hand lever and the right hand engine needs me to use the left hand lever. That's a bit of a pain. That's hopefully in due course that'll be tweakable, but I can't really see why this isn't natively recognised in Flight Sim. I mean, it's recognised, but it doesn't work coherently when you try to program it. Even if you avoid using the reverse zones below the detente. So that's just another thing. I don't know if that applies to the TQ6 Plus. Back to the BBR32s. I have managed to, as I say, program some of the switches. I did think I would go, and I've pretty much got what I need. I've got the flaps, got the elevator trim on the yoke handle. I've got some buttons for the track IR which work fine because they're programmed through the track IR interface. What else have I got? Parking brake, flaps are up here. That's pretty much all I need to fly day to day, but I wanted to start using the GPS, and as you know, doing anything in the virtual cockpit by pressing buttons, particularly when you're using track IR, is a pain in its own right. This cockpit, I've taken great pains to remove any need of the mouse and keyboard, which means there's nowhere to rest the mouse. So actually it's even worse, you know. I have to balance something on my knee and use the mouse and that, so that's, you know, completely rubbish really. So I thought, let's set up the GPS, because I've got my own GPS panel with all the knobs and so on that I need. None of those items appear on the available controls. You know, we've got a whole list of all the controls available here, but nothing. And some of the radio stuff appears on there, or all the radio stuff, but the GPS controls are not there, and that's because the SDK is not finished. They're working on these things. They're going to be produced in due course, but they're not ready yet. And so even if you get the beta version of FSUIPC, FSUIP7 beta version is out, I think it's for free at the moment. Same deal, you know, it can't implement, it can't hook you up to functions that aren't exposed by the SDK. So that doesn't work. And Air Manager, likewise, you know, there's a beta of Air Manager for Flight Sim 2020. So we've just got to wait until Microsoft or Asobo catch up on those things. So I'll just keep on experimenting ad hoc at the moment. I was experimenting with weather, and you know, it's very hard to control when you've got weather on. Now I think that's a realism thing that I've noticed there. The weather, now I hope I'm not giving too much credit where it's not due here, but it seems to me that the winds interact with the terrain. I was taking off, well, I mean, I've been flying a few places. Queenstown, which is right beside mountains. Concrete Municipal, where, you know, you're pretty much right next to the mountains if you're in the circuit. When you fly close to the mountains, things get much more turbulent. So that's, I hope that's a concession to realism, and I hope indeed that it's actually interacting, the wind's interacting with the terrain logically. So that, and of course the weather, the icing that I've already mentioned, and the rain effects that we do see on the windscreen, you know, they do bode well for what's to come with the weather. So there you go, just a few more little observations, but I think we'll be back with some more flying pretty soon.